Today on the show, we're going to talk about Jason Todd. If you didn't know that it was actually the Batman readers that killed him, then this show is for you. Jason Todd, the second Robin, first appearing in Batman 408 in 1987, and he died in 1988, meaning if we're just talking all the male Robins, he was Robin for the shortest amount of time. And you might all be wondering, well, why is that exactly? Well, that's a question we're actually going to answer in this video. But first, let's talk a bit about his origin. So, Jason Todd, a street orphan. Now, obviously, a street orphan has to feed himself. And obviously, a street orphan would need money to do that, and to get said money, they might steal tires off of nice cars, and say those nice cars are the Batmobile, and say Batman sees this. Well, that's how Jason and Batman met. Bruce Wayne has Jason put in a school for troubled youths, but it actually turns out that this school is the HQ for a gang of thieves. Fortunately, Jason helps Batman shut down the thieves, and he becomes Robin. Jason had 6 months of intense training before he could wear a Robin costume, but there was a slight catch with Jason. You see, while Dick Grayson had all these natural acrobatic skills, Jason didn't have anything like that. He just had a lot of angst. Batman realized that if Jason learned how to channel his rage, he would become an amazing crime fighter, but also if Batman didn't take Jason in, Jason would just become part of the crime element and probably a thug in his future. Jason had his first adventure as Robin, and he encountered Two-Face, a villain he had heard of but he didn't know much about, so he did a bit of research and found out that Two-Face is actually the villain that killed his father, Willis Todd. When Jason finds this out, he is flooded with rage, and it's really the first time that a reader had ever seen a Robin or a teen hero that angry, and Jason goes up to Two-Face and attempts to strangle him to death. Batman was able to catch up with Jason, calm him down, and they would stop Two-Face together. But Jason did not tell Batman about his initial feelings, and this is a trend that would follow Jason to his grave. So Jason was, how do I put this delicately, a bit of a pighead. You see, he didn't really follow orders. Like one time, Batman and Jason had planned a surveillance mission, a quick get in, get out type situation. It was months of planning in advance, and Jason just jumps in, starts attacking, and ruins the whole plan. Jason would even begin to use guns, even though Batman hates guns, and he knew that. This being said, one time Nightwing would return to the city and he would work together with Jason, and they'd be pretty cool with one another. And Nightwing would even give Jason his number and the original Robin costume and say that if Jason ever needed someone to talk to, that he was always there. Eventually, Jason would join the Titans. And Jason really didn't enjoy the Titans. He didn't like that he had to make plans and save people instead of just attacking the bad guys. Also, he was constantly compared to Dick Grayson, and he really did not like that. Over time, Jason would become more and more violent, till it led up to a situation that we still don't really know the details of. You see, a man named Philippe Garzonas would rape a woman named Gloria, and Gloria would then commit suicide. Jason would head on over to Garzonas without Batman, and by the time Batman turned up, Garzonas was falling to his death, and Jason is all like, he tripped. And Batman obviously doesn't believe that, but he has no way to prove otherwise. Now we're on the all-important death in the family. I will go over how they came to the decision to kill off Jason, but first I just want to go over Death in the Family's story. So Jason was suspended from being Robin, and this causes him to storm out of Wayne Manor in a strop, and he goes to his old neighborhood, and his old neighbor gives him a box full of his mother's stuff, and Jason realizes that Catherine Ann Todd wasn't his biological mother. Jason then uses an old address book and the Bat computer to track down his real mother, and it turns out that she actually lives in Ethiopia as an aid worker. Jason goes to his mother and he's so happy to be with her, but then it turns out that his mother is actually working for the Joker, or at least being blackmailed into working for the Joker by supplying him with medical supplies, and then his mother hands Jason over to the Joker as Robin, and the Joker beats Jason with a crowbar and locks him and his mother in a warehouse and puts a time bomb in there. Jason and his mother try to get out of the warehouse, but the bomb goes off and Batman arrives too late and Jason dies. Now on to why Jason was killed. So Dennis O'Neil, the Batman editor of that time, knew that Jason wasn't exactly popular with fans, but they needed a way to creatively remove him from the role of Robin, and they decided that killing him off was the best way to do that. DC hosted this pay-per-call voting hotline type thing. Basically, people could call up and vote for or against Jason's death, and Jason dying won by a grain of salt. There are a total of 10,000 votes recorded, and no one is really sure on the accuracy of the voting numbers, just because there were so many ways to manipulate the votes into doing what you wanted to do. For a really long time, Batman suffered emotionally from the death of Jason, to the point that he was really erratic and violent, and he was more than a little bit apprehensive about taking Tim Drake on as Robin. However, Tim Drake would become Robin, but Jason's actions and personality would be used as a reminder of what not to do. All in all, Batman sees Jason as a person, his biggest failure, and Jason's death was his biggest fear come true. It's super effective! So we all know that Jason returns from the dead, but no one was really sure how, until the release of Red Hood: The Lost Days. So 6 months after Jason's death, Superboy Prime alters reality from the paradise dimension that he's in, and this causes Jason to be brought back to life. After spending a year in a coma, Talia al Ghul recognizes Jason and tries to get him back to health, but he's just too mentally damaged. Ra's al Ghul would eventually be like, "He isn't worth your time, Talia, just kill him." But then Talia had the bright idea of submerging Jason in the Lazarus pit that Ra's was bathing in at the time, and it worked and Jason was brought back to life. But there were a few side effects. So a good change was the fact that he got a really cool silver strike in his hair. Bad changes included the fact that his personality was changed. Thanks to the Lazarus Pit's energy and Ra's al Ghul's nearby energy, he became a lot more violent, a lot more vengeful, and had a total disregard of everyone else's lives. Eventually, Jason would attempt to kill Batman by using a stealth bomb in the Batmobile, but Jason would realize that if he did that, Batman would never know that Jason was the one that killed him, and he wouldn't actually get any sense of revenge, so he travels around the world again, learning even deadlier forms of combat. I'm not going to go over Lost Days in its entirety because it's so good and it's still relatively new, but if you want to give it a read, I put a link in the description below. After war games and war crimes, Jason would make his return to Gotham as the Red Hood, and he would start out by hijacking a shipment of kryptonite from Black Mask, and then he would beat up the Joker with a crowbar, just as the Joker had done to him many years ago, but then he would keep the Joker alive because he says the Joker can be used as a tool in fighting Batman. Jason becomes heavily involved with Gotham City's crime circuit and takes control over several gangs, and then goes to war against Black Mask's criminal empire. It's actually Jason's goal to save Gotham City. He wants to remove all corruption like gang violence and drug dealings, but because he was so closely linked to crime and he was essentially using crime to stop crime, he did come to blows with the Bat family a number of times over. It's around this time that Bruce finds out that Jason's coffin is empty and he begins to question whether Jason is dead or alive. Eventually, there would be this really weird filler type thing where Jason would find out just how good of a Robin that Tim Drake is. He would break into the Titan's tower, and Tim Drake and Jason would have this battle, and in the end, Jason would kind of win, but he would say that Tim Drake was technically better, I think. It was really quite weird and hard to follow, if I'm honest. There is an important thing here, though. Jason would note that there was no statue of remembrance for him in the Titan's tower, and he'd be all like, I was a Titan, even though he was with them for a very short time and didn't do much. Jason would eventually kidnap the Joker and hold him hostage in Crime Alley, the place that he and Batman first met. When Batman turns up, Jason asks why he never avenged him, and Batman says that he would never kill another person. Bruce does admit that he wants to kill the Joker, and it wouldn't be that hard. He's thought about taking him into a quiet back alley, torturing him for weeks, and then killing him off. But then from there, where does it stop? Jason is then all like, well, you're gonna have to kill me, otherwise I'm going to kill the Joker right here. But then Bruce throws a batarang at Jason's neck, giving him a really light cut, and the Joker manages to set off some bombs and escape. Then Jason wouldn't resurface until after Infinite Crisis. So, in 1 year later, Jason turns up in New York City wearing a Nightwing costume and would go about violently killing off enemies, taunting Dick Grayson. Eventually, Dick Grayson turns up and Jason is all like, hey, you know, we should be crime-fighting partners. And Dick is all like, yeah, no. And then Jason would be kidnapped by a group of mobsters, would be saved by Dick Grayson, and the two of them would go on to defeat the Pierce brothers. After this, Jason would leave New York and the Nightwing mantle behind, and he would send Dick a telegram saying that he still saw them as family. So we're going to kind of skim over Countdown, but there are a few points that you need to take note of. First off, Jason meets the Earth 51 version of Batman, who started using firearms after Jason died. He was essentially the perfect Batman for Red Hood. Earth 51 Batman gives Jason a Red Robin costume and says that he planned to give it to his world's Jason, but he died and it was too late. Jason would temporarily go by Red Robin, but Earth 51 Batman would be killed. Eventually, when Bruce Wayne would die, Jason would become Batman, but he was heavily armed, and whenever he would kill off a criminal, he would attach a note to them saying that he was the only true Batman, and he even built himself his own Batcave in which he tortured criminals to death. Jason's activity went pretty much unnoticed until Nightwing, who was chasing after Damian at the time, came onto the scene. Jason would attempt and fail to kill off both Nightwing and Damian, and later on he would attempt to kill Catwoman and Tim Drake, and he succeeded in stabbing Tim Drake, but fortunately Tim was saved by Damian. Jason and Dick would then have this awesome battle on top of a moving train, and Dick would kick Jason off the train, and Jason would throw himself into a river and survive. Then Dick Grayson would become Batman, and Jason decided that he wanted to become Gotham City's main hero, and he would rework his Red Hood identity. He made his costume a lot more dramatic and let his natural red hair grow out, and he even got himself a sidekick named Scarlet. In this role, Jason was really smart. He used his very violent ways of crime fighting and shared them in social media as the way things should be done, and the public opinion was actually in his favor. Eventually, Red Hood and Scarlet would battle Batman and Robin, and Red Hood and Scarlet would actually win, would strip Batman and Robin naked, and would prepare to reveal their identities to the whole world, but only later on. So for now, Batman and Robin were locked up. Red Hood and Scarlet would then be attacked by an assassin named Flamingo, and Batman and Robin were able to escape from their locks and able to put their costumes back on and save Red Hood and Scarlet. Jason would use Batman and Robin as cover when he got a truck and would crush Flamingo with it, and then he would throw himself in front of an attack to save Scarlet. After this, Scarlet escapes and Jason is taken into police custody. As he's being taken away, he asks Stick why he just didn't use a Lazarus pit to revive Bruce Wayne. Eventually, Jason would be transferred from Arkham Asylum to Gotham State Prison. When Jason arrived at Gotham Prison, suicide figures would skyrocket, the cafeteria would be poisoned, which would kill 82 inmates, and over 100 would get very, very sick, and a whole mess of things would happen, and Jason would be taken back to Arkham Asylum. Jason would be broken out of Arkham by some mercenaries, Batman and Robin would come on the scene, and the mercenaries would reveal that they're actually working for Scarlet, and then a helicopter would turn up, and basically the story ends with Jason becoming Red Hood again and going off with Scarlet to places unknown. That would be the last time that we see Jason Todd until the New 52, and I really, really like him in the New 52. I didn't really like him before, but in the New 52, he's an actual person. He's in Red Hood and the Outlaws along with Slutfire. My issue with Jason in the original continuity is that he was fueled off of daddy issues and not getting enough attention and being violent, and that's all there was to him. But now they've fleshed him out and made him think about relationships and just his whole life, and I really like that. Like I said, he's in Red Hood and the Outlaws along with Slutfire, and I provided a link down below if you want to read it.
It's super effective!
Okay guys, that is it for today. If you think I missed anything about Jason Todd, please let me know in the comments down below. And also don't forget to thumbs up and subscribe and like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter if you want to see more history. My name is Faust, this has been Exploring Comics, and it is super effective. Quick note before I go, I am hosting a Patreon. This is really for all of you that didn't watch my update video. So you can either go to my update video to find out information about Patreon, or just click in the link down below and that should give you all the information that you need.